Hi everyone, in this recording I'm just going to be giving you a brief demo on how to get started with Audition in our studio so you can start recording. At the bottom left here of your screen, you should see a window like this, a blue face. It says Finder. Go ahead and click on that to open up a Finder window. In this Finder window, click on Desktop, and then we're going to make a new folder on our desktop. Go up to File, and then New Folder. And let's make a folder for the project we're about to start. Let's say it's my podcast episode or something like that. You're making whatever that is. You can call it the assignment name, whatever you're doing, but you have a folder here. Once you've done that, you're good to go. Click Close. Next thing we need to do is create an Adobe ID. The program we're using is called Adobe Audition. It's made by a company called Adobe, and even though we have the program for you, you don't have to purchase anything. Adobe still wants people to sign in with an Adobe ID for most of their programs. So if you click on Safari and then go to adobe.com, then click on Sign In, and if you don't have an account already, click on Create an Account. Use your Grandview email address and just create a password that you can remember to create that account, and then you'll be able to get into Adobe Audition when it's time to do that. Once you've done that, you can close that window. Now it's time to open up Adobe Audition. Adobe Audition will not show up here on the dock the first time you use your computer, but after you've used it, it will show up there. But to find it the first time, easiest way to go is just to this little magnifying glass in the top right and type in Audition. And there it is, Adobe Audition 2022. You can double click on that and it will open up Audition. It should only take a couple seconds to open. The first time you open Audition, you'll probably see some sort of instructional window or something like that. You can just close that and you'll see a window that looks something like this. To get started, at the top left, click on Multitrack. This is going to open up what's called a new multi-track session. You're going to create a new session. You can give your session a name. I'm just going to call it My Podcast Episode. And then where I have Browse here, I'm going to click on Browse, and I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to find that folder I just made. I want to make sure that I'm saving my session into that folder I just made. Otherwise, Audition will just save it in some random folder that you might not be able to find later. So I'm saving it in this folder, clicking on Choose. These other options here are not important right now. You can just click OK. Okay. The next thing we need to do is let Audition know that we have a fancy microphone plugged into the computer right now. Because by default, Audition will not know that you have a fancy microphone plugged in. It will just want to use the default microphone that's on the computer. So at Adobe Audition, at the top left here, find Preferences, and then Audio Hardware. Then here where it says Default Input, find this drop down here and choose Pro FX. That's the name of this microphone system. The default output can stay the same, just be Mac speakers, that's fine. And if you get a warning window telling you, are you sure you want to do this? Just click on yes, it's okay. Then click OK. Okay, the next step then is to begin activating the microphones in the studio that you're going to use. So when you're sitting in the chair in the studio next to the computer, you'll see a soundboard that looks something like this, and you'll see a box that looks something like this. To activate the first mic, the microphone, the main microphone, the one that you're probably sitting at, you need to press this button here that has the number 1 on it until that shines red. Then you'll need to find the fader for channel 1, it's right here, and fade that up to a little bit over this gray point right here. What you want to see is you want to see these green bars moving to about the halfway point. You never really want them to get to the yellow, and you especially don't want them to get to the red. But we're pressing this button here, moving this fader up to 1, and making sure those green bars are kind of in the range where you want them to be moving when you're talking the way that you will be talking when you make your recording. Sometimes this box gets turned off, maybe a student turned it off or something like that. If that happens, there is an on-off switch in the back of the soundboard back here. You can turn that on or off. And then let's go to this board over here. This is actually the headphone controls. Your headphones, you have a pair of headphones, they can just plug in right here into this first input. You can also adjust the volume on your headphones. That's different than adjusting the microphone sensitivity. It's just adjusting how loud they are in your headphones just by turning this knob right here. Sometimes this box might get turned off. If that happens, just press this power button right here to make sure that button is turned on. Once you've done that, you have activated your microphone. You can also activate the other microphones in here There's a microphone 2, which is this one right here. And over here is microphone 3. You can activate those on this box right here just by pressing the 2 or the 3 to activate those microphones as well. So you're in Audition, you've activated your microphone that you're using. The next step is just to start a track. It's going to give you a bunch of tracks by default, but you're probably only using one track. If you're only using one track, you can move your mouse in between these 2 tracks like this until your mouse turns into this funny looking arrow thing, and just click and drag this down to make this track a little bit bigger. Next thing we need to do is we need to actually activate this track. You can do that by just clicking on the R right here. This is arming that track for recording. As I'm looking at this, I'm looking at these levels and I'm seeing that my levels are a little bit too hot right now. I shouldn't be going into that red area. So I'm going to go on the fader on the soundboard and move that fader down just a little bit so it's not quite so loud. You should ideally be setting your levels so that at the loudest point when you're talking, you're not getting into that. You're maybe just starting to get into that yellow area when you're at your loudest. So maybe when you do a check, you shouldn't do your sound check as a 1, 2, 3, 4, check, 1, 2. You should do your sound check at the volume you'll actually be speaking. So maybe if you're reading from a transcript, read that transcript at the volume that you'll be speaking to do that sound check. That way you don't get any crunch or any distortion or things like that when you're actually doing the recording. To begin the actual recording, you can click on this big red record button right here, and it will begin recording you. You'll be able to see the sound waves move, the waveforms as they go. And then to end the recording, you can just hit the space bar on your keyboard, and that will finish the recording. So now I've got a recording. I can listen to it even. In recording, you'll be able to see the sound waves move, the waveforms as they go, and then to end the recording. Okay, great. You have a basic recording ready to go here. Once you've recorded all of your stuff and you're ready to send it off, you want to send it off wherever it needs to go, you can do that next step. Okay, now you're looking at your sound waves here, and there's actually a lot more room for these sound waves to go. Once you get to the point where you're done recording and you have your track the way you want it to be, you might want to amplify it a little bit. You can do that very simply by just going down to the bottom left here. You can see this little, almost looks like Wi-Fi bars right here. When you hover your mouse over that, your mouse turns into a hand with some arrows. If I click and drag that to the right or to the left, it will amplify these sound waves. Now, what I will do is I'll amplify them just to the point where the loudest point is not touching the top or the bottom of the track here. If I go too far, I'm going to get distortion. It's going to sound bad. But if I get it just about to this point, give myself a little bit of headroom, that way at my loudest point, it's not overly loud. Okay, that's all the editing we're going to do with this today. Now I need to show you how to save this file as an MP3 or something that you could actually upload to the internet or something like that. So when you're done recording, you're happy with what you have, go up to File, and then find Export, then find Multitrack Mixdown, and just choose Entire Session. If you know what you're doing and you know which clips you want to use, you can choose Selected Clips. We'll just choose Entire Session. Then it's going to give you some options. First of all, you can give your file a name. A lot of times it's going to have Mixdown at the end. You can keep that if you want to, or you can change the name however you want. Then under Location, again, it's just going to save it in some random folder by default. So click on Browse, go into your desktop, and the easiest way to find that is, see this little arrow right here? Click on that to expand this. Then you can find your desktop, that folder you just made. It's actually already made another folder for you, and then it's right in there, and just click Save. And then for the format, there are a bunch of different audio formats. The one you're probably most familiar with is MP3. Now this is a sort of compressed audio file. It's the lowest quality one you can use, but it's also very small and very easy to save. So if you're sending it, you could send an MP3 in an email. WAV files are higher quality. AIF files are the highest quality, completely uncompressed. They're also very large, probably too large to send in an email. So depending on what you're using it for, you might want to choose which one. If you want the highest quality, choose AIF. If you want the most compressed, easiest to work with, choose MP3. I'm just going to make an AIF here and then click on OK. Shouldn't take very long. Once that's done, you can go to File and hit Save, and then you can close this session. Now, if I go to that folder I made at the beginning of this video, I find my podcast episode folder, And look, I can see my session. This is my audition session. If I wanted to go back and make some more changes and record some more, I can open this to open up Audition. This is a PKF file. It's just kind of a code file. Don't need to worry about this. And this is my mix down. It's my actual audio file. If I want to listen to a preview of it, you can just click on it and just hit the space bar, and it will begin recording you. You'll be able to see the sound waves move, and it'll begin playing that for you. Now, what about saving this? Because maybe you want to save this whole thing somewhere else. Maybe you want to save it into a different location. Let me show you how to do that. On this computer, there is an application called OneDrive. If you go up to the magnifying glass up here and type in OneDrive, it will open up a program for you called OneDrive. OneDrive is your free cloud storage that you have through Grandview. You can access it anywhere on campus. You can access it from any computer. It'll open up OneDrive, and when it's done that, you'll see a little cloud icon at the top right here. And you might see an option to sign in or something like that. Once you've signed in, you can see an option here to open a folder. And this is your main OneDrive folder. And you can actually access this again from any computer just using your browser. You can access it through MyGVU. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my folder that I made earlier and just drag and drop it here into my OneDrive. Now I'll be able to access this anywhere I can access my OneDrive.